This interview I'm talking to Ben Hemming, a blues singer from the UK. Hello Ben, and thank you for doing the interview. How are you doing today?
Yeah, great, thanks, yeah.
How did you get interested in blues?
Quite a while ago, I was kind of going through a bleak period in my life and I decided to go on a bit of a musical pilgrimage around the States. So I went to all the kind of major music towns like Memphis, Nashville, New Orleans. And although before then I did have kind of an interest in blues, that trip is when everything kind of clicked musically, I suppose.
Who's your favourite blues player?
That's a tricky one. I like a lot of the old sort of Delta blues guys because that's kind of where it all sort of started. Like, you know, the legendary sort of Robert Johnson kind of, he was obviously one of the big names who came out of that. But from then, the blues kind of morphed into, you know, Chicago blues when you had sort of electricity got involved and stuff like that. But yeah, kind of like the old guys like Son House, that kind of stuff, I think, really.
Your fourth album, Broken Road, came out in June. What's so special about the album?
I guess that album was when a lot of things sort of came together, as in my development of songwriting, I think, really came together with that album. I think really grew as an artist, and the music I was able to put together, it was actually recorded in Oslo, funnily enough, in Norway. It kind of, yeah, a few things kind of clicked when I kind of got that album together, I think.
What's the inspiration for the album?
I suppose, I think with music, it's impossible not to be inspired by your own life, I think. But I think there's definitely an inspiration of where I was when I wrote it, as well as kind of all the other sort of musical influences you can't get away from, like with the blues and stuff like that, I suppose, yeah.
Tell me about Dark Deals.
Dark Deals is kind of like a song that really came together on the records. People responded to it really well when we put it out as a single. I guess Dark Deals is kind of about, although it's talking about, sounds like it could be talking about someone else, but it's actually talking about myself, really. So it's kind of one of those songs that's kind of quite introspective and sort of looking at yourself, really, I suppose. If that makes any sense.
This album is slightly lighter than previous albums. Was that a conscious decision in the songwriting process?
I think that's kind of just how it sort of happened, really. I mean, the album before The Devil Beside Me was probably the most darkest thing that I've done. It was just, that was a very heavy record for me. And actually, I remember when I recorded that album, I actually got very ill halfway through. So I had to take a month off before I was actually well enough to finish it off. So that kind of, I think that summarised the whole album, really. It's kind of like a difficult album to get out there. But and this one was just like more of a kind of enjoying the recording process, and I think that maybe comes across in the songs maybe being a bit more lighter.
Do you think this is how your music will progress?
That's a difficult one to say because, you know, I mean, you don't really know where you could go in the future. I hope to be obviously making records for a long time, but I feel like I have kind of found my voice musically now, so I wouldn't really want to sort of go off and do like a rap album or something like that. I think it's definitely a kind of this bluesy rock kind of music. Whether I'll sort of go more towards blues or more towards rock in future albums, we'll see. But the next one, which I'm kind of working on now, does seem to have a little bit more of a blues element to it, but it's still but you know, we'll like it. It's definitely a Ben Hemming record, I suppose.
How's the new material coming along?
Yeah, good. I mean, I wrote a lot of music in the first lockdown, and I basically wrote an album's worth in that lockdown, and then since then I've still been sort of working on some new songs which are maybe a bit more sort of bluesy. So I think in the summer, which is probably the realistic time I can physically get in a studio, because at the moment things are just difficult to record more than just yourself, really. I think I'll be in a good position to have a good collection of songs, yeah.
When would you like your new album to be released?
These things, the thing is with music, it does take a lot of time. Usually you don't put out a record as soon as you finish recording. You kind of need to, because of the nature of the industry, you need to kind of build up a bit of hype, a bit of promotion for a release. So you tend not to put a record out until 4 months after it's kind of been recorded, 4 or 5 months. So I guess if all goes according to plan and I get to record an album in the summer, then hopefully kind of autumn, sort of winter time, it'll be out there.
You sing about change and facing reality in writing. Are these subjects important to you?
Yeah, I feel like, although my music isn't overtly sort of political, it has undertones maybe of that. I guess that's what I'm wanted to do with my music, is have the spirit of the blues on my take on it and from where it originally came from. So I feel like I'm taking that and moving it on to maybe like a modern blues and a modern situation that we're all kind of in at the moment, maybe.
What current issues are you particularly passionate about?
Well, I think at the moment there's a lot of bad stuff happening. Just personally, as musicians, I feel there's a lot of bad stuff having to go through in terms of like very little support from the government in terms of what's happened with COVID, and then going onwards with Brexit, and we seem to have a pretty bad deal when it comes to touring. It's not getting any easier to be a musician. It seems to be something that is getting a lot harder, and I know a lot of people have kind of had to sort of give up on it, I think. So I guess that's quite important to me. People realising how important music is and not neglecting it.
How important is producer Nick Terry to your work?
Well, Nick has been involved from probably my second album. We recorded together in Oslo on my second one, and then he's kind of been involved ever since then, really, in some stage. Devil Beside Me, he didn't actually produce it, he just mixed the album, but he still had kind of a really important role to play. And then Broken Road, he mixed and produced it. So yeah, I think he's very important. Yeah, definitely part of my sound.
Tell me about your band.
So I have a backing band who are kind of based in London. Yeah, they're kind of Louis Rampino's on drums. He was basically the drummer who has been involved with my last 2 albums. So he's really important. And then Ryan Hampton is like on lead guitar. I play guitar myself, but he does the lead, so that brings another sort of level to it when we're playing live, as well as Ruben on bass. So yeah, they're cool. Unfortunately, we haven't seen a lot of each other at the moment with what's happening with gigs, and that seems to be kind of how things are starting to pan out for 2021 as well, which is not good. But I think we'll get together again when we record the album, I think.
How has lockdown impacted on you?
At first, I thought how about the negative things that lockdown has had on my music, with gigs basically not happening in a significant way. And then I kind of realised that actually, since releasing Broken Road, I did basically put a little flag in the sort of UK blues scene, and I do feel like I'm kind of a name that people are starting to recognise now, as before maybe that wasn't so much the case. So I do, although it's been negative in one sense, it has forced me to kind of look about online. It seems to be where everything is at the moment, so I've kind of been maybe utilising that a lot more, to good effect maybe.
Would you class your music as new blues?
That's been something that's been described as my music, new blues, but I don't know, it's yes and no. I mean, it's got it's my own sound, I think, I would say, more than anything, although it has got elements of blues in there. It's got elements of sort of Americana, but so maybe new blues is probably as good as any banner to put it under, yeah.
What are you currently listening to?
I'd say at the moment it's a kind of a mixture of still a lot of kind of old Delta guys, Sunhouse, Mississippi, Fred McDowell, those kind of guys. And then recently I've been going for a lot of walks, not very rock and roll, but and just listening to sort of maybe some ambient stuff, really, just to sort of, get you in a good headspace and stuff like that.
What are your plans for 2021?
I guess my main objective is to get in the studio and get another record put out there, and then see where it takes me, really, with that record. When sort of coronavirus hit, my plans changed from taking my music to the next level, which is what I always try and do each year, to just actually keep making music, because I feel like so many people haven't been able to do that for various reasons. I feel like just having come out of last year maybe in a stronger position than I was before was just a bonus. Really, my main objective was just to keep doing music, because it felt like that was so difficult to do. But this, basically put out a new album and just keep pushing on, really.
Anything else you want to mention?
Just if people want to find out more about me, the best place they can go is my website, which is benhemming.co.uk. And my music is pretty much out there in every place that it can be. So I've got CDs, vinyl, and I'm on Spotify, Apple Music, all the kind of streaming platforms. So check me out.
Ben released Broken Road in June 2020, and I'd like to thank Ben for joining me for this interview.
Thanks for having me.